very, very good. I was shocked. I just pulled in on a Wednesday night.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a wide angle lens on it. So it should catch you if you walk out that way.
So,
Okay.
I'll move the camera.
Well, good. Good for her.
What leg are you guys doing?
Yeah, you're fine. You're good now.
Oh, boy, I get to be in the shot too. Fantastic.
This is a real wide.
All right, everybody. Let's grab a seat. Susan's here, we can begin. All right. So we are finishing up the second step. And we've talked a whole lot about believing and the difference between faith and believing. And this that I put on the board today has a lot to do with that, I think. If you can't read it, it says, I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. And I believe in love, even when I cannot feel it. I believe in God, even when he is silent. Does anybody know where this came from? It was carved on the wall in Auschwitz, the concentration camp. So that's a pretty powerful thing to put up on the wall in the conditions that that person, whoever wrote it, I shouldn't say living on, but dying on. Pretty horrific life there. So this is really, to say this, that you really need to have faith. I mean, that's real faith, right? And so we've talked about that faith is knowledge that comes as a result of a complete process. Okay, so this is why the 12th step is the conclusion. And we should not expect this result in step 2. And many people fail because they're expecting true knowledge by faith in step 2 before they've even came to believe, or before they've made a decision, before they've gotten any experience from their decisions. And they not getting any results from yet. So we can't begin with faith. We can only believe in the beginning. But that's all we need to get started. And that's kind of what we've been talking about. All right. Does anybody, did anybody actually finish their assignment? Okay. You want to read yours?
So on my list, I have what I believe about God, what I think and believe about God. He's forgiving, has a great sense of humor, last minute, knows all, allows me to fall, always here. I mean, intentionally put here instead of there. Teaches me lessons, exposes the truth in me and others, guides me to be of service, wants relationship, gives me purpose, loves me unconditionally.
Okay. And you've been sober for a while. How long have you been sober?
23 years.
23 years. So I would expect that kind of a list from but again, and just to mention it, because when we're working with new people, if somebody new has got a list like that, they're full of shit. Really. Well, at 23 years, that's, you know, that's the kind of list that you should have. But at, 20 months, that's not the kind of list you should have. But we all come in here with negative stuff about God, and that's what we need to put down on the paper, right? And then we're going to press change and rearrange that. But does anybody else got?
Tara has her hand up.
Okay.
I'm here, Tara.
I'm trying to tell who's Tara. All right.
You know who I am. I'll be there. I'll be back in town tomorrow. All my stuff for what I believe
Are you still in
about
Texas?
God. Yeah,
Okay.
had a little setback. So, yeah, family emergency. But I'm coming back to Oklahoma City tomorrow.
Okay, good. So
So
now you
anyway-
had all negative stuff on there, right?
I have pretty much all negative stuff. no proof that there's a God. If a God cares about me, why am I so screwed up in the head? If God is good, why is there so much pain in my life? He doesn't answer my prayers. He's judgmental. If he's real, why haven't our loved ones come back to visit us and let us know they're okay? Then I had a couple where he has, he's given me a lot of second chances. I can go back and look and say yes. And I've been able to go on with my life despite, DUIs, whatever experiences. And then what I want my God to be is to be present in my life, provide me comfort, demonstrate somehow that he's helping, assisting me, love me, help me to overcome my problems, forgive me. And then I go on and on, help me change my negative thinking. It's all this, help me to love myself, that he's with me at all times, and someone that I have a close relationship with. That's what I want my God to be.
Yeah.
But what I believe.
What was the DUI thing? What was that you had there?
Oh God, I had it in college. I mean, we're talking 30
No, I
years
mean,
ago.
you had it on your list just now, right?
Yes, I said despite my DUIs and other really bad experiences, I've still been able to move forward with my career, and it really, I mean, it's impacted parts of my life, but not everything in my life. So I've been given a lot of second chances, and my last one I think was really my really last second chance, and that
Okay.
was almost 4 years ago now.
So all those negative things on there, you want to cross them out. You want to cross them out and get rid of them. And you're going to work off the list that you have the positive things that you want God to be. And then you're going to do what we call the fake it till you make it prayer. And the fake it till you make it prayer is real simple. You're just going to say, God, even though I don't believe you are, and you read out loud your list, today I'm going to act as if. Okay. And so by doing that, and I can't even tell you how many people over the years I've shared this with in workshops and just all over the world, actually. And I mean, thousands and thousands of people, literally. And I can tell you honestly, I've never met one person that's come back to me and said, it didn't work, Danny. Not one person. And I can't tell you when it's going to work. But if you do that every day, and sometimes numerous times during the day, when you start your day over, you got to start your day over with God, even though I don't believe you are, and you read your list of what you like God to be. Today, I'm going to make believe as if you are. And if you do that, there's going to come a day, I promise you this, there's going to come a day that you're reading that list and you're going to stop yourself and you're going to say, wait a minute, I do believe that. And one by one, you're going to cross those negative things off your list, and you're going to be left with an understanding of God that you're very comfortable with, that works for you. That is the end result of doing the fake it till you make it prayer. I don't know if it happened in a week or a month or a year or 10 years. All I can tell you is if you do that every day, whenever you have to do it numerous times a day, you will come to a point where you will believe those things, and you'll have a better understanding of God that you can really work with. It's usually a lot more sooner than later. Because the things that that list that you had that you'd like your God to be, can you read off the first one again?
To be present in my life.
Okay, hold it. How long are you sober now?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. I would assume that God is present in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can go back and point where
No,
he
you don't have
has
to go
been.
back. You're 3.5 years sober. And 3.5 years ago, you couldn't stay sober, could you? You got somebody.
No, not even for a minute.
So by your own will, you couldn't do it, but somehow you've made a little connection with God and you've managed. So he is present in your life. What's the second thing on your list that you'd like God to be?
Provide me comfort during stressful times.
Okay. So when you have stressful times, do you stop and talk to somebody, stop and pray? Or you just try to get that shit out of your head by thinking?
I've been thinking, and that's what I talked to my sponsor about, because I've had a lot of shit in my head the past 3 weeks, so with family emergencies.
Yeah.
And yeah, I haven't been doing those things up until just a few days ago, so.
There's
Yeah.
a sign on the wall, those little signs on the wall in all the AA rooms, and one of them says, think, think, think. When I first got here, I looked at that and my guy said to me, that's for us, not for you, Danny. So we don't encourage you to think when you're, especially when you're stressed out and got things going on. So if you would talk to somebody and hit your knees and talk to God, I think you'll find that he is there and he does give you comfort. You just have to give it a chance to work. What's the third thing on your list?
I had demonstrate that he is assisting me, but,
Well, we've already established that, haven't we?
yeah, that's already, assist me in feeling peaceful with myself and what I have. Because that's something I never have, so.
Yeah, well, the opportunity for you to be peaceful is there. It's not God's job to make you peaceful. It's your job to stop doing the things that make you not peaceful and start doing the things that make you peaceful. And then guess what? You're going to be peaceful. So that's about you, not about God. And because God takes over in the other place there where you ask him to assist you. When you go to him, he will assist you. When you try to work it out in your head. So I think most of the things on your list that you like God to see, if you really get honest and look at them, they're already working in your life.
I think so.
But until they do, just keep doing it, make it prayer.
Well, thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody, what we just talked about?
Yeah, can I say something?
Sure.
So I have a problem with fake it till you make it.
Okay.
Because that's what I did my whole life, was fake it.
Right.
And I come in here and I'm trying to do something different.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, you said it in a prayer.
Yeah.
Act as if, so I'm gonna call it the act as if prayer.
You can
rather
call
than
it the act
fake
as if
it.
you know what?
Yeah.
Many people over the years have said to me the same thing.
Yeah.
They said, Dan, I can't fake it till you make it. I go, why not? You've been doing that shit all your life. All of a sudden you're sober now, you can't fake it no more. No, I get it. I get it. But, you know, it's really not hard for people like us to fake it, whatever we're talking about. And if we're talking about a positive thing, you know, but call it what you said. That's good. That'll work. Yeah. But for the new people that when they tell you that, like, can't fake it to you, man, bullshit. You just spent 30 years faking it to you, mate. You made it here now. Fake it a little more about God and you'll be all right. Yeah. God don't care how you get to him. So, all right. Anybody else want to talk about this, the second step? What we've discussed? We've done we went over a lot of stuff. This is the 13th week and we're just finishing step 2. So we've covered a lot of stuff in the first 2 steps, which is the foundation of the program of recovery. So if you've got this foundation down solid, you're in good shape to move forward. It's a lot of the things that we've talked about and we've discussed, a lot of people don't do when they get sober. They don't take the time to do the first step the way we talked about all of the things we've covered in there, and they certainly don't take the time about God. So, okay. So now, hopefully, you'll have a beginning of a relationship with a higher power. Now you can look at what's coming next. All right, so let's go to page 58. Let's, you know, this is something here before we get to the third step. We're going to read in chapter 5, page 58. You hear this all the time in meetings, but I think when somebody reads how it works in a meeting, I think that's when we spend time talking, thinking about what I have to do after the meeting's over and who I got to call and who I got to see and what am I going to eat. And then somehow you catch it that how it works is over and the meeting starts and you start paying attention. You know, not many of us really pay attention to the words. So let's go over the words. It says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Now, a lot of people are under the assumption that they changed the word to rarely. They never changed the word to rarely. It's always been rarely from day one when Bill wrote it in the original manuscript. But they did change the word in this sentence, and it was the word path. The original manuscript, Bill wrote directions. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our directions. So the intent that Bill had for you and how it works was not so much of a path, but more so directions. Because we're getting into looking at the steps, and the steps are more a set of directions than anything else, okay? So he says, those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally capable of being honest with themselves. So here in the second sentence of this, how it works, it tells you who's going to be sober and who's not going to be sober and why. In one sentence. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. So we're talking about a manner of living. We're not talking about drinking or not drinking. It doesn't say they are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of not drinking. Okay, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a manner of living. I don't know about you guys, but I had no manner of living when I got here. It was just my way or the pain and suffering of not doing it or doing it my way. So did I give you guys the I'm not sure if we went over the that little equation. That not sound familiar to you? Knowledge plus practice. Did I not give you that? Well, you might want to write this down. Just kind of write it like a math equation. Knowledge plus practice
Equals learning.
equals learning. Learning changes character.
Changes the way you live.
Character changes the way you live. I'll say it again for you. Knowledge plus practice equals learning. Learning changes character. Character changes the way you live. Now that's a little equation, a little saying, a little something that you're going to find twice in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is the first time. It talks about they're naturally incapable of grasping and developing. Grasping is knowledge and developing is practicing the knowledge. Later in the steps, we're going to come across it in another phrase in the book. And the reason I think that's important or helpful maybe is the right word, that knowledge plus practice equal learning is that this is not one of my brothers, he's dead now, but he took the Evelyn Wood speed reader thing years ago, back in the 70s. He was a genius, man. You give him a book and zip right through it, give him a test to get 100. But walking down the street, a guy could sell him a watch, like, I got a watch, it's worth 500. 50, and he'd buy it. Be a $3 watch. But he was really book smart, okay? Because with him, if you read something and studied it, he'd get 100 on the test. That's not how it works in Alcoholics Anonymous. The only way you learn here is by practicing the knowledge that you get. And then you learn something. So that's how it works here. So knowledge plus practice equals learning, not knowledge and studying hard or not reading. It's knowledge plus practice. You have to take whatever you learn here, then you got to practice it in your life. And then you learn something. And when you learn something, you change your character. When you change your character, you change the way you live. So he's talking about they're naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. So again, we're not talking about drinking or not drinking. We're talking about how we're living. We got to change the way we live. So, you know, it's that old story, right? You take a horse thief and you sober him up, all you have is a sober horse thief. Right? There's going to come a time in this guy's life where he's going to say, you know what? I'm not robbing no horses and I'm not drinking. What's the sense of all this shit? And it's going to make more sense for him to take a drink than it is to stop robbing horses. You get it? So because he hasn't grasped and developed a manner of living that demands rigorous honesty. So that's what we got to do. He says their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So what he's saying here really is you could be a mental defect. You could even be paranoid schizophrenic. You could be, you know, what is that? A manic depressive, right? You could be all of these things or any of those things. And you too can be sober if you have the capacity to be honest with yourself. And we're not talking about cash register honesty. He uses the word honesty twice in this paragraph. He's not talking about, I love it when I'm in a meeting and the newcomer comes in and says, I was at the store and the guy gave me $5 too much and I gave it back to him. How this program works. My first thought, you should put the $5 in your pocket, went home and read the damn book. That's a joke. My point is that that's not what we're not talking about cash register honesty. But the honesty we're talking about is real simple. What happens to me when I drink? And look in the mirror and say, Danny, what happens when I take a drink or a drug? If I could get honest with myself, well, what really happened, play the tape all the way through. If I could get honest with myself, that's the honesty that's needed here that we're talking about, okay? So it doesn't matter, what's the matter with you? Manic depressive, you're a little OCDC, whatever they call it today, I don't know. You could be a little just plain fucking nuts. But you can get sober if you can be honest with yourself about what happens when you take a drink or a drug. That's the honesty we're talking about. So he says, our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. So when we're sharing, like, it's in a general way, you know. I don't get deep into the things I did. Well, I just, in a general way, share what it used to be like and what happened and what I'm like now, right? If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. And that's about the action of working the steps. That's what that really means, okay? So people say, when should I, this question comes up a lot, especially with new people. When should I start on the steps? You know, when do I get into the program? Well, it's going to tell me that at some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way. I don't know about you, but I almost killed myself trying to find a softer way. But we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. So that's when you begin, from the very start. You don't come in here, get comfortable, find a sponsor that you like, get into the meetings and all that shit, and then maybe start. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Get busy right away. Get into this shit right away. But so I think we've talked about this before, but I'll mention it again, because you hear all the time that this program is not for those that need it, it's for those that want it, right? You've heard that before many times. That's bullshit.
Didn't you say that?
Excuse me?
Didn't you say that?
No.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up on the page.
you pull it up. You pull it up. I guarantee you, I haven't said that for the last 30 years. I've been saying quite the opposite of that. So this program is not for those that need it, because we don't have enough room in here. And it's not for those that want it, because I got plenty of people I know that want to be sober if they just didn't have to stop drinking. This program is only for those that are willing to go to any length to get. Now, that's what I said. I guarantee you that. Yes. Yeah. So that's because that's what the book says. If you have decided you want what we have and you're willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. So who's this program for? It's for people that have decided that you want what we have and you're willing to go to any length to get it. I'm back down on the next paragraph there. With all the earnest in our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas. And what are we talking about again? Our old thinking, right? Our old ideas. And the result was nil until we let go absolutely. So we're talking about surrendering unconditionally. Remember, I gave you the example of the guy that's a prisoner of war, right? And he's got conditions upon his surrender. No, yeah, no conditions. Surrender unconditionally, right? So the result is nil until we let go absolutely. So there's no middle of the road here. There's no sitting on the fence. There is no fence. There's no fence in Alcoholics Anonymous. You're not half sober. That's like being half pregnant. There's no such thing, right? You can't be half pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. You're either sober or you're not. You're either sober and doing this deal, or that disease is doing you and you don't even know it yet. Okay. And until you let go absolutely, you're not going to get any results. It says, remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. Point blank declaration from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're talking about God. Again, if that offends you or runs you out of the room, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. May you find him now. It says half measures avail us nothing. Again, sitting on the fence, right? You're not half sober. Half measures avail us nothing. We stood at the turning point. What is the turning point? Yes. Yeah. Where I just can't, I get like Popeye, where I could stand till I could stand and I can't stand no more. I just can't take any more. I don't know what to do. I'm at the jumping off point. That is the turning point. We've all come to the turning point. A lot of us have come to many turning points. What have you done with them? It's like digging a hole, right? If you keep digging, you're going to get another hole. You're going to find another bottom, another bottom, another bottom. So it says, we asked his protection and care with what? Complete abandon. We completely abandon ourselves to God and asking for his care. So it says, here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. Now, going back to the first paragraph of this chapter, I said to you that Bill's original word for path was directions, right? So he said, the steps are really a set of directions. They're not a set of suggestions. And this is where people misunderstand this little paragraph here. It says, here are the steps we took. So in order to, we took them, you have to complete them with action. You can't, we took them without completing them with action. Otherwise, it's here are the steps we looked at. Here are the steps we thought about. Here are the steps we read. Doesn't say any of that. Here are the steps we took. So we're completing them with action, which are suggested as a program of recovery. So really, it's kind of a little confusing because people will say that the steps are only suggestions. No, they're not. They're a set of directions. The suggestion is that if you want a program of recovery, then you take these steps. That's what the suggestion is about. It's not about the steps. Do them if you want, do whatever one you want. It's not about that. That's not going to God with complete abandon, is it? And start picking and choosing the steps you want. All right. So now he goes through the 12 steps. And at the end of the 12 steps on page 60, he says, many of us exclaim, what an order. I can't go through with it. Why we say that? We're balking, right? We like to balk. Want to do it our way. That's why we're balking. What an order. I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We're not saints. The point is, we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Now, all too many times I've seen people use this paragraph as an excuse to the shitty behavior. We're not saints. It's about progress, not perfection. This is not written here for you to use it for your defects of character. It's not. Stop doing that.
My sponsor said the other day, it's like a lot of people say progress, not perfection, or progress rather than perfection. She's like, it's spiritual progress.
Yes, it is. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect. Here's these principles. We're not saints. The point is, we're willing to go on spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to pride. I read that, didn't I? All right. So now it says our description of the alcoholic. Where is the description of the alcoholic? Ginger, can you get me coffee, please?
Just black.
Yeah. Huh? Okay. The description of the alcoholic. Doctor's opinion. Bill's story. There is a solution. More about alcoholism. And then when you finish that, the first thing that you get in We Agnostics is what? The distinction between an alcoholic and a non-alcoholic, remember? First paragraph on page 44. In the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. Thank you. So our description of the alcoholic, doctor's opinion, Bill's story, there is a solution, more about alcoholism. The chapter to the agnostic. That one's not hard to figure out, is it? Chapter 4, we agnostics, right? Here's the confusing part. And our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. I was in a meeting one day, a guy with like 30 years shared that he finally understood that sentence there, that the before and after part. And he said, I get it now. He says, before I got sober and after I got sober. And I went, no, it's not. That's not what they didn't write this book for you to say that. And he was really upset because it took him 30 years to figure out the wrong thing. According to me, the wrong thing. But it says here, and our personal adventures before what? Before this page. Before this page, where is the personal adventure? Bill's story. And all the examples in more about alcoholism, Jim's story, the other guys, right? So our personal adventures before and after this page is what? The whole back of the book. Is personal stories, personal adventures. So it's our personal adventures before this page and after this page make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives, step one. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism, step two. C, that God could and would if he was sought, step two. If you go to some treatment facilities, they'll tell you that A, B, and C is 1, 2, and 3. It is not. A is step one, B and C is step two. How do I know that? The next sentence says, being convinced. We were at step three. So if I'm convinced of the first two steps, I'm at step three. Don't forget Bill's original manuscript, what he said. Bill said, that's right. If you are not convinced on these vital issues, you ought to reread the book to this point or else throw it away, exclamation point. So Bill's message to us was, you have to get the first two steps down. Excuse me. Or there's no sense doing the third step. So now over here, the three pertinent ideas are that we're alcoholics and we can't manage our own lives, that no human power could relieve our alcoholism, that God could and would if he was sought. If I'm convinced on those 3 points, the three pertinent ideas, thank you, then I'm at step three. Now, before we go on, I got a question for you. And not those that have been here and did it before. The rest of you, go to page 63 for a minute. The second paragraph on page 63 says, we were now at step three. Go back to page 60. The paragraph after the three pertinent ideas says, being convinced, we were at step three. Have you ever wondered why it says we're at step three and 4 pages later, it says we're at step three? Have you ever wondered why? Because I sure did when I got here. Not the very first time I read the book, but after I was looking through the book and studying a little bit, I went, wait a minute, didn't it just say we're at step three? And I wanted to know why it says we're at step three on page 60, and then 4 pages later it says we're at step three. Which one is correct? Begin and end? Who said that? I wouldn't say begin and end. I would say begin and continue. But yes, yeah, I know what you meant. Yeah. So over here on page 60, if you're convinced of the three pertinent ideas, step one and step two, then we're at step three. But I didn't do anything yet, did I? I didn't do anything, so I'm not really ready for step three, because look what it says. It says, being convinced we're at step three, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that? And what do we do? That's a damn good question. What do we mean and what do we do? Well, the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Wow. Now, I'm going to tell you, including myself, I have met nobody in all my years sober, nobody that has got to this point and were fully convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. So what are we supposed to do? Sit here and not move on? I'd say no to that, but I would say there's a lot of work to do. The next 3 pages talk about our self-will. Actually, if you look at page 60 and 61, it shows us exactly how our behavior is. And on page 62, it puts a name to that. So 60 and 61 describes our behavior. 62 labels it. Selfishness, self-centeredness. But let's go back to the self-will part. I know people with 20 and 30 years of sobriety, they're still not convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. I'm not picking on you now, so don't, this is not about you, but many people that have sat in here that refuse to believe that the chair and Susan got lifted up, or whoever it was that year, are people that are still stuck and not fully conceded that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success, because their mind tells them they have to prove it to me. Because I know. And if I know, you can't tell me different. And it's very hard to have an open mind. Very hard. That's the whole thing we've been talking about for weeks here, about learning how to believe, learning how to have hope, learning how to move on, okay? Opening up your mind, being open-minded about things, okay? Because any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. Well, are you convinced of that? I'm sure not at this point in your recovery. Now, those of you that have been sober for a while, maybe, yeah. But not no new people. Nobody just comes in here, first go around, hits this point, and they're convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. No, they're not. So you have to spend time, just like in step 2, we had to spend time talking about God. Who is this God to you? What does you understand him? You know, and in step 1, we had to spend time about this disease and how's it work and what. Over here, you have to spend time with the new people and talk about their self-will. How does it run in every part of their life? Their family, their friends, their business, their work, whatever. Self-will. Because look what he says. The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. On that basis, we're almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives were good. Most people try to live by self-proposal. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the plays in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he's more likely to have very. So here's something that I learned about me, right? Didn't matter what I did to you. That really didn't matter. Because my mind worked like this. Whenever something happened and you, because you see, the book tells us, and we're going to read it now, that when we do something to somebody, they retaliate. When we step on somebody's toes, they retaliate. They cause pain and suffering in our life, which is about, we're going to read that real soon here, right? So when they cause pain and suffering in our life, the first thing I say about you is, how could you do that to me after all I've done for you? And I'm going to tell you, you're going to hear me say that a bunch of times in the next couple of weeks, because that always comes back to haunt me, because that's my first thought. 30 years later, that's still my first thought. I have enough sober time to take a breath and not go after my first thought, but that's still the first thing that pops into my head. How could you do that to me after all I've done for you? That's my immediate thought, right? But that's what happens. We step on people's toes and they retaliate. They cause pain and suffering in our life. Well, go to page 62 for a minute. Let's read that paragraph. It says selfishness, self-centeredness. That we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but we inevitably find that sometime in the past, we made decisions based on self, which later put us in position to be hurt. That's like when you get a new guy in and then he's got to go to court and face the judge, well, he's 6 months sober, he's doing good. The judge is not sentencing him on his last 6 months. He's sentencing him on the decision that he made a couple of years ago that put him in a position to be hurt today. And the first thought for the new guy is, how can you do that to me? I've been good. I'm sober 6 months. Right? We don't get it. It's about if I'm driven by, see, it says selfish. If I'm selfish and self-centered, then I have to be driven by 100 forms of fear. Because if I'm not, then I'm not selfish and self-centered. But just the fact that I'm selfish and self-centered means I got all kinds of fears. Because selfish and self-centered means it's all about me. Everything's about me. Even though it's got not a damn thing to do with me, it's all about me. So I'm selfish and self-centered. So my fears are going to be, I'm not getting what I think I should get. I'm going to lose something that I think I got. What are they going to do when they find out? All these things play in my head because I'm thinking that, again, how could you do this to me after all I've done for you, right? Well, so because I'm selfish and self-centered, I have all these fears. Hundreds of forms of fears. Self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. Anybody that is selfish and self-centered and driven by these fears is going to step on people's toes. Shortcuts. In the fourth step, we're going to learn about shortcuts, right? You know what a shortcut is? It's the quickest way to get somewhere you didn't want to go. That's what a shortcut is. So here, when I take shortcuts in life, I can't do it. And I'm going to get much deeper into this in the fourth step, but I can't do it without stepping on people's toes. And again, we'll leave that for the fourth step. So all right, go back to page 61. So we're talking about the first paragraph here. What usually happens, the show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to assert himself more. We're good at that, right? I'm trying to fit the square in the circle of life and it don't fit, so I just push harder. Sounds like a good idea. He becomes on the next occasion still more demanding or gracious as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he's sure the other person are more to blame. He becomes angry and then self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrestle satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? And do not his action make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? Shit. That's not a very good description of who we are, but that's pretty accurate. All right, you know what? Let's go over to step 3 for a minute on page 59. There's 5 points to step 3 that we need to go over. 5.9. Might be right after 5.8 and right before 6.0. All right. Step 3. So there's 5 points to step 3 that we need to go over. It says made a decision. So the first point is a decision. We need to understand what that is. made a decision. So a decision is different than a thought or a resolution, right? We all make like New Year's resolutions and or when I'm 60 or when I'm 50 or when I'm, if I lose 20 pounds, if I get enough money, if Ed McMahon knocks on my door and gives me the prize, I'm gonna be all right. All of these things, right? So a decision implies further action. The fact that he uses the word decision is he is implying further action. Okay. In order to make it a decision, if I decide I'm going to drive to New York when the meeting is over, if I don't get in my car and head east, it's just a resolution. It's just a thought. Okay. So a decision implies further action. That's the first part. Now he says to turn our will. Okay. Now bear with me here. Our will is our thinking. But it's not just our thinking, it's our thinking on 3 dimensions: past, present, and future. For instance, it's everything I wish I've done, prefer to be doing, and hope I'll do. I'll say that again. Our will is our thinking on 3 dimensions: past, present, and future. It's everything I wish I've done, prefer to be doing, and hope I'll do. And if you look at those 3 things I just said, wish I've done, prefer to be doing, and hope I'll do, they're all of the mind. Wish I've done means I didn't do that, I did something else. Prefer to be doing means I'm not doing that, I'm doing something else. And hope I'll do is again of the mind. They're all in the mental sense. Past, present, future. Turn our will and our lives. And now our lives is action. Our lives is action. It's not a mistake that he uses the word lives. Because people, I say this all the time, and I always get kickback on this, that we have more than one life. I've got a life as a father, as a husband, as a businessman, as a recovering person, as a friend. I've got a whole bunch of different forces of my life, right? So it's plural for a reason. Our lives, it's about our action. And when we talk about our lives and our action, we're also talking 3 dimensions: past, present, and future. It's all about what I've done, what I'm doing, and what I will do. Past, present, and future. Everything I have done, am doing, and will do. It's everything I have done, am doing, and will do. And look at those 3 things. What are they? They're all about action. It's everything I have done means I did something. Am doing means I am doing something, and will do again is of the mind, but it's in more in an action sense, right? So our will and our lives is our thinking and our actions. And why is this important? This is important because it's setting us up for a 4th step. A big thing that people do is they always share that the 4th and the 5th step go together. You've heard that many times, right? But that's not really true. The 3rd and the 4th step go together. If you read the book, step 3 and step 4 goes together, because on page 64, top of page 64 says, though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. That's exactly what it says. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. So what they're saying here is that the 3rd step is as good as it's going to get, just long enough for you to start writing on an inventory on the 4th step. Though our decision, the 3rd step, was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. So the third step is good, but unless I get busy immediately, so when we get to the fourth step, every time you put the pen down and stop writing and pick it back up again a day later, week later, whenever it is, you need to do the third step prayer and bring God back into your writing. Each time you start writing on your fourth step, you got to have God with you. Otherwise, you're not doing a moral inventory, you're doing a selfish inventory. So our decision, though it says, though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. So we had to get down to causes and conditions, what it says. I think. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. Our liquor is but a symptom. Remember I told you before, the steps aren't designed to deal with symptoms? The steps aren't here to deal with symptoms. Alcohol is just a symptom. Drugs is just a symptom. Whatever you're working the steps on here is just a symptom. We got to get down to causes and conditions, which we're going to do deeply. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. So step 3 goes with step 4. So what they're doing here in the third step is they're setting us up to be in the right frame of mind to do the right writing in step 4 when I start inventorying. So I'm going to make a decision. That means I'm going to follow it up by action. My will is my thinking, past, present, and future. My lives is my action, past, present, and future. Over the care, and to me, this is just for me. I don't want to stray anybody wrong. To me, that little 4-letter word is the most important thing in the third step, the care. C-A-R-E. The care. That's the fourth part of the third step that we're going to talk about, because the care means, you know, I don't give my life to God. When God wants my life, he's going to let me know. What do I give to God? I give the care of my life to God. It's my life. I get to do whatever I want to do, as long as I'm willing to pay the consequences. When I got sober, my original sponsor, him and I were in prison together, and we met many years later. And of course, he became my sponsor. And he said to me, Danny, you can do anything you want here, as long as you're willing to pay the consequences. I said, well, it's always been that way, huh? He said, yeah, but the consequences, you're not going to feel the same about the consequences anymore. I'll share that with you one day. 2 years sober, I got locked up for old shit in the past. And I was in that cell for 10 minutes and I thought, damn, I don't belong here. And I spent my life getting locked up. You could just put me in a cell, leave me alone. Just give me something to read and I don't care. 10 minutes in that cell, I knew I had changed. But anyway, so they're setting us up here. So the care, I turn my will and my life, my thoughts and my actions over to the care of God. I don't give God my life. And what that really means, get this, we only got a few minutes left. What that really means, if you can nail this, your spirituality is going to soar. I promise you. If you pay attention to what I'm saying right now and nail this, the care of God means that we get out of the damn result business. I check my motives, I do the best I can, and I leave the results to the care of God. I am no longer in the result business. Whatever happens to me is none of my damn business. That's a tough nut to swallow. Because I checked my motives, I did the best I can, and the results of that is none of my business. I leave that to the care of God. The guy who wrote in the original book, Dr. Alcoholic Addict, Dr. Paul, when I first got sober, I was at a convention in New York and he was the speaker, and he said that when he got sober for the third or fourth time, whatever, he made a deal with God and he signed a contract. He wrote out a contract and signed it. And the contract was simple. It was, God, today I'm going to do everything that I got to do the best I can. And your job is to worry. I thought that was great. That was friggin' 30 years ago. I still remember him saying it. we get out of the result business. If you could get out of the result business, your spirituality is going to soar. If you learn to check your motives, do the best you can, and leave the results to the care of God, your life is going to get 10 times better than it was. And by next week, if you start practicing that tonight, you could let me know about it. We'll pick up where we left off next week. Thank you. Huh? The fifth part is God as we understood him, but we're out of time. We'll pick that up next week.
Thanks, Danny.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you guys.
Thanks,
Danny.
Thank you,
Donna,
Danny. Great
what's up, pal?
session tonight.
All right.
Yeah, Danny,
All
thanks.
right.
Good to have you
All
guys
right,
here.
all right.
Yep.
All right. See ya.
All right, all right.